Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we are going to discuss a great topic of importance in terms of business, in terms of society, in terms of law. So these three concepts seem to be of very different sphere, but in actual they are greatly interrelated. So how are they interrelated? How they affect each other? This is what we will be studying today. So before I proceed, I would just like to mention that these three topics will be discussed in great lengths and details in coming videos. So let's begin. So first thing first, what is law? Whenever we talk about law, the judicial system comes into mind, the police system comes into mind, the courts come into mind. But let's start with the basics. What is law basically? So we can answer this question in many ways. Simpler meaning or complex meaning. We can go to complex in the later stages, but let's start with the simpler meaning. So what is law? Basically there is a society. People in society have different opinions. This person might be believing in something that's good. Yes, he must be feeling that this is right, and other person might be feeling that's wrong. So how to take everyone together? If there is no law, no rule, everyone will behave according to their opinion. So there should be certain specific standards which most of these people should agree to. If most of these people do not agree to these standards, that means that cannot be a rule. So first thing first, how to define a law? So we can basically say law is nothing but certain set of basic standards that most people in the society, another important thing is most people. The question arises, what if only these few people believe this to be a right thing, others don't believe? Is this law, is this rule justified? Then there are deeper questions that come into picture. What if law is unjust? Most of the people in the society do not believe that this law is even relevant or a just law. What to do? So that is where we need to understand that how laws work. So basic standards or basic rules that most people in the society adhere to are called laws, right? So another question that comes into mind, is this law optional or compulsory? Is it optional or compulsory? So what is purpose of a law which is not followed by anyone? So the if law is not followed by anyone, that means it is no good. The law is of no use. So the law has inherent feature that the following of law should be made compulsory. Without compulsion, the law is not going to work. So there can be, for example, there can be a club which can say we have certain rules to work, and there can be a group of people who believe in certain set of rules, but law is not such a thing that can be optional like clubs or some grouping. It has to be obligatory for the people, for the individuals to follow that simple set of basic rules. So this is what law is, certain set of basic standards. So another question arises, why do we need law at all? So this is a great question, that do we even need laws, or all the human beings can work together without the law? So this creates a great uncertainty. So why do we need law? So society has great number of people. No one knows what other people believe or thinks about. So to collaborate, if the society wants people to collaborate, they need to work together, they need to trust each other. This is only possible if everyone knows that some basics are agreed upon. So why do we need law? We need law so that people can go along, people can work together, right? It basically allows us to be certain that these are the things that will be followed and these are the things which are not followed or not liked or not allowed in the society. Another thing, the law, a few minutes ago I told you that law has to be made obligatory. So how do you ensure the obligation? Obligation is ensured by giving power to the government to implement this law. So if government has this power to implement that basic rule, then only people are going to follow the law, right? So what does another important thing that law does? It gives the government power to basically implement the law, right? So how does government uses this power? Government implements the law and also announces set of consequences if a law is broken. So this is where requirement of law comes into picture. Another important thing is it only the government that needs law, or businesses or groups too, right? So basically individuals, few minutes ago we talked how individuals in the society need to collaborate. We also know there are organizations or companies that people look upon. For example, I want to travel to another country, right? I'll be booking a flight for that country. So basically I will be talking to an airline, I'll book a flight, I'm interacting with this company or organization. So all the interactions, say it, be it between the individuals, be it between companies and individuals, be it between companies and companies, and finally the government is also party. So all these interactions prescribes do's and don'ts which are under the law. So we need law for all these interactions, for all these management of interactions, so that there is certain certainty in the society. So we can basically say that law ensures certainty in the society. So these are the basic functions of the law which are very much required to for a society to progress. So now let's understand few concepts. So one concept is rule of law. What is meaning of rule of law? In a society, in a place where there are certain established principles that are announced and known to everyone and that are followed by everyone. So these established legal principles are called rule of law. So basically, what is rule of law? Established legal principles in a society. Established legal principles in a society which everyone knows are basic in this country and are followed even by government in formulation of laws or execution of the laws, right? Then there is a word often used in law, that is public law, right? So what is public law? Public law is any law where government is party to the scenario, where government is playing certain kind of role, either in making of law or implementation of law or execution of law. So law which regulates conduct of government and relations between government and people, it's called public law. So basically the public law is the law that regulates relations between government and private parties. Now private parties, why did I write private parties? It can be individuals, it can be organizations or companies too. Now comes private law. So private law is a law that deals with interactions between certain set of people, say two individuals, or say individual and a organization or a company, right, where they had some dealing, they had some interaction where one is not satisfied and or other has breached some rule or their contract or anything. So any kind of law that deals with individuals or individual and companies apart from the government is called private law. Sometimes private law is also referred to as civil law. So many a times this term also is used instead of private law. So these are the three concepts that are very important in understanding of the law. Certain established principles, rule of law, the law where government is a party in the interaction or government is executioner or implementing party is called public law, and the law that deals with individuals and individual and companies or organizations and government does not play much of the role is called private law. I hope these are clear. Now let's understand some philosophical nature of the terms that I have mentioned earlier as well. One is law. We understood some basic set of standard and rules and regulations that are followed by everyone and are compulsory to be followed are called law. Another thing is morals. What is moral? So moral is basically something that is believed to be right. That is believed to be right. So there can be, like, for example, cheating or stealing. These are certain things that are not considered to be right and are frowned upon, that people believe this is very immoral act to do, right? Cheating in a game, cheating in a any particular scenario, be it marriage, be it other financial undertakings, stealing, taking away someone's property or money or belongings in one or another way. So morals are basically present, and they are not present outside of the person. It is something that is given by individuals from within, and it might be religions that must have told them that this is right, this is wrong, and sometimes it is just inherent feeling. There is no external source of that value, but the people feel that this is right and this is wrong. Then comes ethics. What is ethics? So every moral does not work in every kind of society. Something that is moral, right, correct in one society might not be correct or good behavior in another society. So what is ethical, what is unethical is highly relevant to the location or society we are talking about. So certain behaviors, for example, in Western countries, wearing of hijab or not wearing of hijab is not a moral question, right? And whereas in Middle Eastern countries or predominantly Muslim dominant countries, wearing of hijab or burqa is considered to be a right conduct. Not wearing it is not considered a good conduct in some countries. So location to location, morals and ethics keep changing, right? So what is the difference? So usually laws are made in a society based on morals and ethics, but not all the morals and ethics are used to formulate the laws. So some basics are agreed upon. So we can say morals and ethics are a bigger domains, whereas law is subset of these things. So usually governments create the law for some of the morals that they want are basic minimum which should be implemented. Without it, it cannot the functioning of the society cannot work. So basically morals and ethics are relatively higher standards. They are relatively higher standards. Law is subset which at least formulates some obligation to follow some of these standards. Now another question arises: what if there is a law that is out of ethics. What if there is a law? See, this part is ethics. What if there is a law which people do not believe to be ethical, but there exists a law? So we can say there can be existence of unjust law. And do you think this unjust law will be followed by people? It is highly unlikely, because people do not believe this law to be just for in the society. Anyways, philosophers and sociologists believe even unjust laws should be followed, because not following them can create chaos in the society. People might pick and choose the laws and say these laws are just and these are unjust. So what should society do is to remove this unjust law so that most people follow that law. So another curious insight that comes into mind is laws are as good as people who accept them. So having a law that most people do not recognize it is of no use, because it won't be followed, and making it obligatory would be much tough for the government, because most of the populace does not even consider that to be a just law. So laws need to be just, otherwise these laws carry the risk of not being followed. I hope this is okay. So is it right to break the law? This is the next question we need to answer it. So what if there is a dilemma that this is a right law or no? So philosophers generally believe it's never right to break a law. Many philosophers believe never right to break a law. Many believe unjust laws should be broken. If law is unjust, it should be broken. So this is a for example, downloading of the music from an illegal site. So now there are so many downloading music from a site, from website. So is it just or unjust? So problem is, if the people at the large believe it to be a right thing, they are going to do it whatsoever. So having such a law is counterproductive, because government will not be able to enforce it. So law must be rooted. Law will be broken if it is not justified by the ethics and morals of the society. And remember, these ethics and morals keeps on changing. They keep on changing. So do laws. So if ethics of the society keeps on changing, laws also keep on changing. So next we are going to talk about law and behavior. How does law influence it? So basically as we talked in previous slides, that law is always obligatory. You cannot have a law and say it is choice of the people to follow it or not follow it. So law is obligatory, which means following it is okay, not following it should have some consequences. Then only people will follow the law. So herein comes in the concept of liability. So we want people to follow the laws, we want to change their behavior to do certain actions and not do certain actions. And how do government ensure that? By introducing concept of liability, which is basically another way of saying there are consequences of breaking a law. So what is liability? Consequences of breaking a law. So we talked previously that there are various laws. One we called public law, where government is involved. So if a society or government considers that a consequence should be very severe, because action is extremely unjust, or you can say extremely violent. which means a society as a whole believe that the action is very, very wrong. Very wrong. For example, murder. So consequence should involve a criminal nature. Such a consequence or such a liability is called criminal liability. So we can basically say the consequences where government believes the action to be extremely violent, we provide a consequence that is of extreme nature, and we call that liability criminal liability. So criminal liability is for the crimes committed against the society. Crimes against society. Crimes against society. For example, murder. So these involves prison times so that people can be corrected for their behavior. Next comes quasi-criminal liability. Society believes that conduct is wrong but does not believe that it is so wrong that person should be imprisoned. So prison time is not just for the as a consequence for the type of action a person has done. For example, person crossed a red light, or a person was driving say 20 km over the speed limit. No one was hurt, but he broke the rules. So should there be consequences? Because there is a law to not jump the red light, to not overspeed in a school zone or in other areas. So we provide, government provides a consequence, but not of criminal nature. So what can they can do? They can ticket the offender. They can issue challans or ticket to the offenders, not a criminal action by the government. So such a liability where criminal action is not taken but some other kind of penalty is provided are called quasi-criminal liabilities, because overall the society believes the action was wrong but not up to that extent. Then comes the civil liability. So basically civil liabilities, we talked about private law previously. So private law means where two individuals or group of people or individual or company and company had some understanding, had some interaction, but one party is dissatisfied or believes another has broken some rule they agreed upon earlier of my flight. Say my flight was cancelled without company letting me know that it has been cancelled, right? So I have I can take them to the court that my time has been wasted, my money has been wasted. They signed a contract with me that I will be provided seat on a aeroplane, but they failed to do so. So any liability that arise out of private law is called civil liability, where there has been a breach of contract between parties, individuals or group of people. So in such private law, civil liability usually requires victim to start the proceedings. So victim should start the proceedings against the person so that remedy can be given. So such a liability is called civil liability. Now coming on law and business. In the first slide I told that law, morals, business, society, everything is interconnected. So what it means to what law means for a business. Say a company is going to start a business in a country. What it means for the company. So company needs to know what this country considers right conduct and what this country considers a wrong conduct. Another question asked, is it better to have great many laws in a country? So a business or a company always analyzes what kinds of law exist in the country. Too many laws, too many rules makes a business tough for that company in that country. So many a times having too many rules, too many laws is counterproductive, because companies or businesses hate following too many rules, because it adds to the cost of doing business, because it adds to cost of hiring people to follow that laws, hiring number of strategies in place so that they are not involved in the legal issues. But on the contrary, is no law a good situation? That is even worse situation for a company, because they do not know what is right, what is wrong, where they will be charged for some action or they will not be charged for an action. So there needs to be a perfect balance between how many laws a country has and how many laws a country doesn't have. So there cannot be an absolute vacuum of the laws, but there has to have some laws that are basic minimum that are required for a business to work upon. So there is no answer in choosing one side that more laws are better or less laws are better. There should be a balance, so much so a business is able to generate profits and work properly, and the law is also followed, so that businesses do not breach those laws, do not breach those behaviors in a country. But another question arises, what if a company works in Europe as well as Canada? Are the laws same there? Obviously not. Europe has so many countries, different countries follows different law, or some laws might be same for entire Europe, but not sure that's the same thing is right or correct in Canada or America. So what to do then? But a company is working in Europe as well as Canada as well as US, or in Asian countries, say China or India. So what to do then? And the company has business dealing across the world. So and more companies are becoming global nowadays. The world has become such a smaller place because of the technology. So many organizations, we called super organizations or international organizations, exist to create harmony between the laws of country. How to achieve this basic function? So there are, one example is model law. There can be a model law which can be followed in all the countries, and countries can agree upon. So A country, B, C, D, all countries can agree to this model law. The implementation of this law can be overseen by that super organization, say WTO, World Trade Organization, United Nations. All these organizations can oversee the implementation of this law, and these countries can agree upon the rights, don'ts and do's between them mutually. So they can do a treaty among themselves, they can sign a agreement among themselves that they are going to follow these rules and not do these activities, so that it's easier for the companies to conduct business of international level. Now comes within a company, how can company or organization formulate a plan to handle legal risk? So what is a legal risk management plan? So basically every company, every business needs to have a plan that identifies where potentially they have legal risks. What does it mean? Company is doing its work of producing some pesticides, or it's in business of providing some insecticides or pesticides to the customers, right? They need to know where they can do, their action can result in a legal battle. Where can a farmer suffer some loss and take them to the court? Where can their manufacturing of the pesticide have issues where a company will be liable? So what it means is, company needs to have a proper business plan so that the legal risks can be handled. Legal risks can be handled. So how to basically formulate this plan? Do we need a lawyer, or someone in the business can do this stuff? So basically this can be done. Obviously lawyers, help of lawyers can be taken, because components of laws are well understood by the lawyers rather than business manager of the company. But business manager understand what actions he takes on day to day basis, that lawyer does not know. So obvious, It is collaboration of business managers and the lawyers. A company or business need to understand and talk with both, so that specific angles of laws are handled by lawyers and of actions of businesses are handled by the businesses manager. So how can this business plan be developed? So this business plan can be developed in basically 5-step process. First is legal audit. We are going to talk about each of it. Then is risk prioritization. Finally, deal with risk, preventive and reactive measures, how to deal if the risk have already happened. Implementation of the plan and revision and updation. So what do I mean by it? So step one is risk prioritization. So we need to obviously do legal audit beforehand. Legal audit, write all the actions, all the things that a company do, all the interactions a company has with outside world, with other companies, with individuals, with suppliers, with vendors, with whatnot, marketing campaign, sales team, all the actions a company take should be listed. Then all the actions that are taken should be assessed based on how likely is it to generate a legal battle. So there should be risk prioritization from this list which has been generated by legal audit. So how to do? We can generate that this task is most prone to legal risk, say it's 1. So we can generate and prioritize these risks. Once the list has been generated, we now need to basically deal with risk. So we have generated a list, we have priorities that this is the topmost legal risk a company faces. So we need to understand how to prevent this legal risk to take form of a legal battle. And if the legal risk has already happened, what steps are we going to take to handle the consequence, to handle the liability? We are going to do more about this step in detail. Then comes implementation of the plan. It's not enough to create a plan and just announce it. There should be a proper mechanism. All the employees or the people working in the company should be made aware, should be educated about all the steps that required their understanding, so that this plan is implemented. So there should be usual trainings, usual educational seminars, so that everyone in the companies, specifically the decision makers in a company, they should know what the plan is and how it will be implemented. So it's not just enough to announce the plan in a company. Then finally, as company goes to new locations, a company expands, a company starts new activities, takes on new jobs, diversifies its functions. So as company does more and more activities, more and more business, more legal risks are going to come up, and this plan will need regular revision or updation. And finally, so as I said, a company can handle a legal risk by preventing it altogether. So company can prevent that legal risk, or if it has happened, it can react and solve or handle the effects of that legal risk. So one thing is company can avoid the legal risks. How to avoid it? Find alternate method. If they know that this is going to cause the legal issue, to find an alternative. They can list down the alternatives and take that legal risk out of the picture completely. Another thing is, as much as possible, they can take actions to reduce it. If it is not at all possible to find an alternative and there is only one viable option and which has a legal risk, they can take efforts so that they can reduce that legal risk. Another thing is, they carry on the activity, buy an insurance for that act, so that if that incident happens, there is someone to take care of that risk. So risk is transferred from the business to that insurance company. And finally, if nothing can be done, or we can say if this risk is going to affect us, how much it is going to cost the company. So we can already budget that as expense in the company, so that if that legal risk were to happen, the company already knows that we have money to take care of that risk. So all these four methods are used together in a collaboration to deal with the risk that a company is going to face or is facing. So this was all for today. We basically discussed something about law, what law is, how a society's ethics and morals basically help in formulation of laws, how businesses are intertwined in law and society, and their functioning depends upon laws of the country specifically. This is all for today. We will be talking more about legal profession and other activities in coming videos. Hope you guys like this lecture. Please like, share, or subscribe my channel for more videos related to this topic. Thank you.